As a family-owned five-star company here in Lancaster County, we can't be that company without five-star partners. So we've curated amazing product with amazing companies that are family-owned too, where our customer is their customer. We don't deal with big bank-owned companies where shareholder profit is their first and only priority. You, our customer, are our partner's priority, so you get to wake up happy right here in Lancaster County.
Double deals, savings events, happening now.
You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back once again to the Bulldog Hour. I am one of your hosts, and you're only one here again this evening. I am Coach Joe Mays, here for the Bulldog Hour, Season 11, Episode 4. We're continuing our interview series this evening with a sit-down with the coaching staff, the assistant coaches. We have it broken down into two segments. We have the offensive coaches up first. There's a handful of them that I talked with about a week ago. And then that lasts about 25 minutes or so. And then our second set of interviews tonight is with a trio of defensive coaches that were able to talk with me last Wednesday during heat acclimatization week and just before this week's start of 3-a-days. So without further ado, well, you know what? Before we do get into the interviews, I do want to go over our sponsors here at the program, make sure they get the recognition that they deserve, starting with my dad, Bill Mays, and our family business at Mays Sandwich Shop for supporting us once again here in Season 11. And new this year, Gardner's Mattress and More. Appreciate them jumping on board. Make sure you visit them at gardnersmattressandmore.com and check out Jeff and his coworkers in Lancaster. They've been a huge support of the program this season, as has S&S Mechanical, also new this year. Steve, you can check him out at ssfirstmechanical.com for all of your heating, cooling, HVAC, plumbing, everything. Check them out. Thank you so much for supporting us here on the 10th anniversary of the Bulldog Hour. Also joining us this year was Eric Weiser, Realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. You can check out all his listings and information on his website at ericweiserhomes.com. In addition to those four businesses and individuals, we also have our two anonymous donors and have been with us since, I think, the start or within a year of us, Justin and I, restarting the Bulldog Hour. So we appreciate Mays Sandwich Shop, Gardner's Mattress and More, S&S Mechanical, Realtor Eric Weiser, and our two anonymous donors. Real quick, I'm going to throw up our schedule. It's approaching really quickly. This Saturday is the scrimmage, not listed on there, but the exhibition game against Coatesville is this coming Saturday, August 16th. Kicks off at 10 a.m. at John Gursky Stadium. We are home for the scrimmage this year. And as I mentioned before, the next live show where Justin and I will be joined by guest Paul Roberts is this coming Sunday, August 17th at our normal time, which is 6:30 p.m. However, 2 nights from now at about this time, 8:15, I will be broadcasting my one-on-one interview with head coach Doug Dahm. So that will be the next show. Episode 5 of Season 11 will be on Thursday, August 14th at about 8 p.m. But that's it for me. We're done with the introductions and thanking our sponsors, and we're moving on. And up first is the first coach group. Assistant offensive coaches joined me, and we're going to hear from them right now.
And then brief little intro, and then we'll be on our way. All right, welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I am now here with the offensive assistant coaches. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen, taking the time out of Heat Week practices to be here.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so we're going to start just talking about the off season. How have practices gone in the spring, over the summer, and team camp? And here we are in Heat Week. Just let us know how things are going for your team.
I think everything's kind of starting to come together. Like I kind of always say to the linemen, like we start coming back after January. That's kind of just like almost like learning to walk again. And now like you get up to East Stroudsburg camp, it's like a jog, and now we're kind of really starting to ramp things up and go into the full sprint of the season. So we keep giving them a little bit more every time. More and more stuff goes in, and keep putting more and more on the young athletes, and they're picking it up.
And skill position wise, we have a lot back that are in the same places as last year and excelled in those places. So we've been able to kind of hit the ground running with some concepts and things that are a little bit further ahead for them. They've picked those things up and done a nice job with that.
So you mentioned that there's a lot returning. There's a lot of skill guys returning. A few offensive linemen as well, Brandon. How has it been integrating the new starters, replacing the graduating seniors? Have there been a few guys that have stepped up to fill those roles?
Yeah, I mean, we always know there's always huge deficits when like our senior leadership leaves, especially on the line with Geloso and Reininger, kind of very outspoken leaders there that kind of led that. So now it's kind of turned for Avery Manera and Jesse Etchberger to step up and kind of just moving them around, kind of keeping them next to the younger players. So there is almost like a little bit of a coach on the line that I don't have to yell at him every single time. Like Avery can kind of pull along the guy next to him. Jesse can pull along the guy next to him. And then again, we've got seniors stepping in, Aiden Janakovo, Chase Frable, and then kind of juniors starting to battle in then too. Preston Simons. I mean, there's Caden Nemitz in the mix. Like, and then you got obviously our returning tight ends. So there's a good wealth of knowledge coming back. And then obviously there's young kids. It's just how it always is. There's always next man up.
And anytime there's competition, whether it's the line or the skill positions, that just elevates everybody's level. So I think that, nobody should be comfortable there. Everyone should realize that if you're not getting the job done, the next guy's there ready and waiting, to take that position. So that competition has been key, especially up front, to try and push, everybody to get better.
Jake, you talked about before the show, not a lot to say because all the guys you have are back. Have you seen, what kind of improvement have you seen though from Corell Akins, Monty Greer, and any other guys that are going to carry the ball for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, Corell and Monty obviously were the two that carried the ball a ton for us last year. They both, we're trying to expand what they do really, and Coach Paul mentioned it earlier that, with some experience back at the skill positions, we're trying to give them some extra things that we can do to keep them on the field, and they're both weapons for us. So we want to make sure that they both continue to stay mentally in everything that's going on and expand their capabilities for us. And then it's getting some of the younger guys caught up. We have Tyler Ulrich, who's going to be a junior for us, who's a real solid kid, smart, dependable football player. And then we have a conglomerate of sophomores that are coming up that are just really getting their feet wet with the position and our offense is, there's a lot to learn, and it's it's something for them. And then we're also doing some things with Damian Greer, who was up with us last year as a freshman, and as a sophomore, is able to be put on the field for us and do some things because he's also quite fast. So we want to try to get him the football when we can.
Right. So I know Damian played a lot on defense last year, but do you see a role for him on offense at some points this year?
Yes.
Yeah, and again,
Offensively, yeah.
Go ahead.
Offensively, he's a kid that can move around and play multiple positions. You have Jaden Carpenter back at wideout. You have Elijah Dean. Now you can throw Damian into the mix, along with some other younger kids, sophomores moving up to juniors. Your Brady Matisics, your Colin Youts, some of those guys.
Zerkovich included in that.
Yep, Zerkovich as well, who will be a senior, who will have an expanded role. But now you're able to do things with multiple players on the field formationally, just to put them in positions to be successful.
And again, you ask yourself, who are the guys you got to get the ball in their hands that are going to be able to take it the distance every time they touch it? if you're top 10 in the nation in hurdles, you're probably one of those guys. You probably fit them in that mold somewhere.
Well, so the only position we didn't really touch on is quarterback, and obviously we know last year Maddox Gruber was
who?
Yeah, I don't know. Maddox.
Okay.
Gruber, yeah.
I remember him.
I sat here with you guys last year. Justin and I talked to you about the unknowns of the season, really altogether, not just at quarterback. I know for a while in the spring you rotated through a few guys before settling on Maddox, and I would say he at least met expectations, if not exceeded them. What's it been like this offseason, getting ready, reloading at the quarterback position? Have you been having a battle between a few guys? Have you settled on someone? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think we're still in the mix. I mean, Mason Young is obviously here, Cole Peterson, we have Johnny Challenger. All those guys are doing a tremendous job of improving, and I think once we get pads on and more 11 on 11 situations, I think that's where we'll see really who rises to the occasion. 7-on-7 is one thing, but when the fire's coming at you, that's when you really find out your quarterback. And we really didn't know that with Maddox, last year, like how that was all going to play out. And obviously, just like we said, he exceeded a lot of expectations. And we've been blessed the last couple of years with Tommy Hunsinger, Maddox stepping in, and now we feel very comfortable with any of those guys that we mentioned, Mason, Cole, and Johnny, kind of stepping in there and doing a good job for us.
And as you watched Maddox didn't exceed expectations in week 1, but he got better in week 2 and better in week 3. And he wasn't the same quarterback at the end of the year as he was in the beginning. So that growth is really important, and that comes with understanding football, understand what we're trying to do, and then being able to execute, like he said, when the real fire's going on a Friday night underneath those lights.
Do the three quarterback options present the same type of play? Are they all a little bit different?
I'd say Mason has a little more athletic, to him, a little more shape to him, and the other guys, I think, have a real good grasp of what's going on. They're not as dangerous in the run game, but the other two guys definitely can still execute many of the things we do, which don't require the quarterback to pull the ball down and run it all the time.
Right. We mentioned Maddox, and I just kind of want to wrap up 2024 before we fully move on to 2025. Any of you have takeaways from last year, things you want to improve on, things you were happy to see and would like it to carry over into 2025? Just your thoughts on last year and how it may impact this season.
I think, like Jeremy said, I think it was a progressive season. Like some of those games early on, obviously Cheltenham, going back and forth. Plymouth White Marsh, I think, was one of those that we kind of like put our foot in the ground a little bit. That was a good football team, a physical football team that we kind of, did our way. And Nazareth, I mean, even though we lost, and, we have as much due to that as the defense, we're a team. But I felt offensively we executed how we wanted to execute. Now it came down to the last, series of the game to score. We had, a fumble on the 1 yard line, but that doesn't dictate the game. But I think as we move forward throughout the whole season, you could really tell the guys kind of came together. Leaders stepped up, and you make it to a district final. That's an impressive feat. And winning against Manheim Township, everybody LL runs through Township. That's all we heard last year, and I think our kids grasped that and really played a solid football game against Township.
And again, you go to the Harrisburg game, that was a team that was better than us. We could have played better, but every game leading up to that, we probably played pretty darn good football, with the exception of the Cedar Crest regular season game.
Mm-hmm.
The kids executed really well and just grew and grew and grew, and it was really exciting, and they loved it. They had a lot of fun playing football.
Yeah, one thing I take note from last year, and the other time that this really sticks out was in 2021, I believe, is just also having an understanding of our personnel. Last year we had 3-4 tight ends that could do it, right? And we tried to take advantage of it. We tried to utilize that skill set, and we don't necessarily have the same skill set, but we still have a skill set, and it's about making sure that we utilize that skill set as best as we can as as an offense.
And those tight ends, they made Sunday night real fun because we're like planning, like, what can we do with these guys? Because we've never had, this plethora of tight ends that could all do, such great things at the position. And it was really kind of fun. Like, how can we line up and really put some kind of stress on the defense with these guys? And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you lose 3 of the 4 of those, unfortunately. Brady, Christo, Cam have all graduated, but Mike Glover's back. What can you tell us about Mike's game this year? How has he improved in the offseason? What are you looking forward to doing with him in the offense?
He's understood what he needs to do to get to the next level, so he's really been a workaholic. He's out there, trying to push himself in the weight room. One thing he can do a little bit more is bring somebody along with him, but he works his butt off. There's no question about that. From speed to strength, we put it on him to say, hey, you have to learn every position in the passing game so that you can become multiple. So when we want to get you the football, you know what we're doing, and it's not one of those like, I don't know what this guy does when we're in this formation. And he's really taken that on that. He's come in the next day and, hey, coach, what about this? And he's asking certain things so you can see that he's really ready to try and give it everything he's got to understand the big picture instead of just his picture.
What are you most looking forward to this season? Well, what stands out? It can be positionally, can be team, can be player. Just what are you most excited for entering a new year?
Personally, I just think that I'm looking forward to how the speed that we have at our skill positions comes out within our offense and ultimately seeing those 4 or 5 guys that can really run and seeing what they ultimately can do for us as the year progresses.
And the kids really put the work in the off season. We asked a couple guys, think about going out for track. Damian obviously, runs the hurdles, but Jaden Carpenter ran track, Elijah Dean ran track. We had other guys go out and run track and really work on their speed in the off season. To help improve the overall team speed that we have.
And you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like you've seen it on the field now.
Yeah, and we're seeing the results of them putting in the work in the off season, running track and doing other sports and things like that. So it's exciting.
So it was mentioned a little bit as we talked about summer practice and camps and getting ready for the season. But who do you think are some players poised for a breakout that maybe you guys know, the team knows, but that the community, the fans don't know yet? Who are some, it doesn't have to be seniors, anyone on the team that you think is really ready to step up this season?
And again, the familiar names in the backfield. Those guys all had their hands all over the football and were making big plays for us. Somebody who was on the field a lot last year, but didn't get the ball much was Eli Dean. Yeah. And really at ESU, he had a phenomenal camp.
Great camp.
He had a phenomenal camp. And again, the reason we go back to ESU is because we were 11 on 11 a lot against teams that aren't Wilson.
Right.
You can call a play out here and half of the defense knows it. So they can stop, they can change, they can alter things and maybe take away the first look because this guy knows the play. But when you get against other guys, that's kind of what he was, and he had a really nice camp. Carp had an ankle ding a little bit there, so he or a quad or knee, I forget what he had, but so he was out just a little bit, and Eli really stepped up and made the most of the reps, and that'll be exciting to see just how he steps up. If we need a second tight end, if we want to get creative, we got guys like Farrell and Barima battling right behind Mike, and obviously Mike is what he is. But that second guy is going to be somebody that can be dangerous with the ball in their hands too. So there's a lot to be excited about with the speed, like Coach mentioned, and just getting kids involved. How can we get them on the field in some kind of role with the skill position?
Mm-hmm. And then the line's probably where the most new faces will be. I mean, you got Aiden Giannakolo coming back, kind of like that's your senior. That's kind of getting his time to shine. Like he waits like Wilson way. You bide your time till your senior year. Some break in a little bit earlier. Chase Frable, Caden Nemitz, just those kind of guys that, again, they're there pushing for depth, and we'll see in the end who emerges. Juniors, Preston Simons, just thick, strong kid, kind of working his way in there, battling too. David Weiss, the 6'6", kind of getting his speed, his health back up so we can kind of really contribute. We'll see where that goes with that. And then, obviously, Jesse and Avery.
Is this one of your, I don't know if bigger is the right word, but there seems to be a lot of length on the team? It feels unfamiliar or something that we're not used to. Is that an accurate thing that I've heard from people, that there's some tall kids on the team?
Yeah.
Unusual for Wilson, it seems.
It seems like, we've always got the 5'8" in the middle. I mean, we do. That's kind of where Simons is going to fall. But then, Avery Manera, he's probably 6'3". Jesse's probably 6'2", 6'3". Janakovo's probably around 6 foot. And then Weiss is 6'5", 6'6". And then younger guys that are obviously very raw. There's Kunle. He might be the tallest of them all, 6'6" or something like that. There's a young sophomore tight end, Gabe. Yeah. He's 6'6". Yeah, I mean, you got Glover. All those tight ends are huge. So, I mean, then there's Jay as a sophomore. He's probably 6'2" right now. So, we've got some height finally.
It's nice to have.
Yes.
You can't teach
length.
that. So.
Long arms, we'll take.
So I know all eyes right now, you're focused on Cheltenham, first game of the year. Get to open the season at Gursky Stadium, not on a Saturday like last year on the road. 6 home games, which is nice. I assume that you
and
don't
the
want to
7th
travel.
scrimmage.
Right,
the 7th scrimmage. We got 7 home.
A lot of action going to be happening here, and I know the goal is to play as many as possible in the postseason here as well. But besides Cheltenham, when you look at the schedule, does anything jump out? Not necessarily like, I'm really looking forward to that game, but any ones that look like, a trap or a pitfall, or we can't overlook this team? Like, any of the 10 games you know of right now stand out?
The Cheltenham game, I mean, from the get-go, is that way. It's a new coaching staff there. They always have some good athletes that really compete against us. I mean, we saw it 2 years in a row. The first time we played them, it was kind of one of those real late games that it was a weather problem, right, or something, right?
Whatever. That whole week.
So we got off to a really fast start against them, and then we had to come back on Monday and finish the game, and they scrapped their way back into the game, and last year, it ended up being a tight game at the end, and then they have a new coaching staff, so. Those are, whenever you have a new coaching staff, those are always things that you have to think about, especially early in the year. Like, what are we gonna see? What are we gonna get from them? And how's it gonna differ from previous years?
And then obviously the D1 quarterback at Nazareth is always fun to watch. Fun for our defensive guys to plan against, and obviously you're not looking past him because if he has the guys out there that can catch, he can put the ball pretty much wherever he wants. And then you see the video of him running the 100. And winning his race, it's like, wow, he's a really nice football player.
I mean, we do a good job in those first 3 games. Like, out of those first 3 games, we'll know what we are. Mm-hmm. So that's the great thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure after last year you felt that way as well. Cheltenham was a little bit of an issue just because of changing location, changing day, being out there in the heat of the summer on a Saturday. So that one was tough to really get a grasp on, but already mentioned, I think, Chad, when you mentioned Plymouth Whitemarsh, that felt like you really knew what you had last year because the physical, the toughness was there. You were facing a team that was bringing a lot back and obviously rose to the test. And despite coming with the loss at Nazareth, there was a lot of good things to take away from it. And I think it gave everyone confidence that you can hang with what's supposed to be one of the best teams in the state with one of the top quarterbacks in the country, who you said is back again this year, committed to Auburn right now, so we'll see. We'll see what happens down the road. But any other? How about any of the league games? Are there any contender? We know Township's always going to be up there, fighting right there with you guys. Hempfield, Cedar Crest. There's some
Cedar Crest, right? Cedar Crest is there, but you know what? You get everybody's best game is Wilson. Township's starting to feel that. Everyone takes their best shot against you, and we've had the success, long term that we've had. And that just puts that target on our back. And we win again last year, and the target gets bigger. So, but truthfully, the team you gotta focus on is right here in this locker room at Gursky Stadium, because the second we start to think that we're too good or we're better than this, and we don't pay attention to details, take care of the little things, that's when we're gonna have that slip up. So we got to continue to just stay here and make sure that we're the best team that we can be to go out there and then take on whatever's in front of us.
Is there anything you'd like to see changed in PA high school football? It can be a rule thing.
You can play last year's again because I think there was something about recruiting, something like all this, like the transfers.
Well, I mean, that's always at the forefront. Everyone talks about those issues that they really need the governing body to address, and there hasn't been a lot of movement in that regard. But is there anything that's outside of that from another state or from another league that you like, or like what's your opinion on like Texas just introduced instant replay, I think last year. Anything, whatever top of your mind comes up about Pennsylvania high school football in the future.
We can get some of those like Texas or Georgia high school stadiums.
The $60 million stadiums, yeah, I'm sure that would be well received. Yes.
I just the instant replay obviously is a very expensive thing. I don't know that every school, in the state or in the league or wherever could afford it. I don't know how they fund it. Obviously in Texas, football is a little bit bigger than it is here when you're talking about $60 million stadiums, but that becomes a challenge of finances, and I don't know.
For me, the one rule or one procedure that we have that I've always thought is a little dated right now is overtime. Actually,
okay.
I like the idea of sharing possessions. I think instead of the 10, we should move it back some.
More like college,
20, 25, more college-ish. Yeah, I think I think expanding that field a little bit would make it interesting.
Okay.
That's just me, though.
Have you guys seen any impact, or any impact? Probably not the right word, but any talk about high school athletics and NIL, like in college? Because I know it's legal in Pennsylvania. There's just a lot of red tape and confusion about it right now. But has that ever come up? Anyone ever mention anything about it to you?
No.
Keep that far away, right?
Well, yeah, there was I don't know, it was because we talked about it a little bit, and there's like that goofiness that it can't be from a booster or a graduate or whatever, but like who else is going to do it? Like, I don't know, it's a strange thing, but I guess somebody somewhere had a way, and that's why they were like, yep, approved, here you go.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, when I live in Florida, it's just giving kids scholarships, obviously, to Catholic schools. So, same thing with Pennsylvania, our big Catholic schools. I'm sure the kids are getting tuition. They're not paying for tuition. So where does that ever balance? Like, we always talk about that balance. Like, we feel, hey, we're a public school. We get what we get. If kids want to move in and establish residence, great. But if not, like, we got to build our program. And I think the biggest thing is from the ground up, which I think we've been all kind of involved in right now, that we're trying to transition how it has been done to kind of get us a little bit further along the line for the high school level. So when the kids do come up, even though they're playing 2-3 grades above them, that anxiety level doesn't really affect them. They're like, I know it mentally. I know formations, coverages, plays, that now I can just let my physical attributes kind of contribute and go play. So I think that's kind of one of our transitions that we, try to implement throughout these last couple of years, which, is great. And I think all of our coaches have bought into that. Like, we have a lot of great coaches. I mean, Joe, you helped coach for many, many years and have done a phenomenal job. We got Corey, now we have a new Wes Noecker. So it's, a lot of good people that are willing to spend their time to help our program out.
Right.
And I think there's probably 6-7 coaches on staff that if they aren't currently, in the last 2 years, have spent time coaching the youth programs as well as the high school, whether their kids were in it or whatever it is. So we've been down there and trying to have everything trickle down to have everybody kind of starting younger doing the same things that we want to or hope to do at the high school level.
Right. Essentially, it takes a village. It's a community effort. When I talk with Justin or some of the players about some teams that have struggled and maybe you don't think they should be struggling, it's just there hasn't been the full buy-in from everyone. Yeah. You can't get it done in just 3 years. It takes a lot of time, and that starts with, for us, Van Reed and Lincoln Park, up through the middle schools until then they come to you, and they have to feel supported and knowledgeable before they get here.
Yeah.
And that's what Wilson's done a very good job over the years of doing that. But to take it even to the next step. And I know that that's already underway. So,
and again, no knock on the staff that was over at West, but Anton Fernzer was a huge piece of our success at the high school for years because he continued to get kids out at West. He had kids out at West all the time. So like we got a ton of kids up to that 9th grade program because he was in the building. He had a great relationship. He was that funny, goofy, lovable guy that drew kids in, and that was huge. That was huge for us, and that was a big loss thank you for stepping up and filling that void last year. And now we're hoping to get people in there that can, do a similar thing and draw those kids in over at West, because we need a lot of kids to get up here and be competitive in big school football.
Yeah, I think that legitimate recruiting in-house of, hey, come out and play football, when you see, a bigger athletic kid that maybe is new to the school, new to the district, or just hasn't really gone out for sports yet. And that was a good thing that Anton was very strong at doing. And the best part, was 4 years later, seeing them playing as seniors out on this field, contributing when they hadn't even played football till seventh or eighth.
And they learned enough from him, and he made it enough fun at that level that they got to our level, that they made their way up. So that's what was important about that.
Well, hopefully that continues for the future. The last thing I wanted to ask you guys before I let you go is, just what do you want to say to the fans and community ahead of this season? Fresh season, fresh slate coming, new look team with new seniors, juniors, and sophomores, and freshmen. What do you want to say to the guys and girls packing the stands this year?
Mark, go ahead. We'll start and go across.
So I think it's every year brings excitement. Okay. And kind of what we talked about earlier is what you see in week 1 is not necessarily what you're going to see in week 10. Hoping and watching these kids develop, into young men, young football players, that's really exciting. And you're going to see that with this group of kids this year. They're going to be better in week 3, in week 5, in week 7 than they were in week 1. So just continued growth, continued development by a group of young kids.
I think, we're obviously excited for 6 home games. Like you mentioned previously, last year we only had 4. So you get more opportunities to see our kids. Our fan base has been tremendous for years and years that support us. The kids feed off that energy. We feed off it as coaches. We appreciate your support. Anybody that, contributes to our program, or your son, plays with us, it's a big attribute to us. But we appreciate you, and we're all looking forward to it just like you are, but we need you guys in the stands and help us cheer us on, and we hope to put out a great product on the field.
Yeah, kind of the same thing, piggybacking off that. Like, the technology is great. You can sit in your living room and watch a football game, but it's just a different environment when you're there in the stands. Like, same thing. There's more people there. The game just gets more hype. The atmosphere is that much better. So yes, you can watch it from your couch, but come on out and watch it. And again, a rainy day, I get you. But anything other than that, just come out, brave the weather, sing Gursky, enjoy a football game.
Right. There are times that we're sideline people who want to go to the press box on those rainy games and kind of make that switch. But yeah, again, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids out here giving it everything they got. Come out and support them. Again, make it loud. That energy is awesome. When those lights flicker on, I can still remember back to when Tommy Hunsinger, hey, are you going to be a baseball player? You want to be a football player? He said there was nothing like those Friday night lights. So get out here and be loud, cheer our guys on, and have a fantastic year.
Yeah, and I just always think it's really cool the connection that happens, and you see it, pre-game and things like that between the high school players and the youth, in the community, and them coming through, and especially when they're walking in front of the stands and everybody's reaching their hand down to get a high five and things like that. Those are some pretty cool moments that the community and the children and the youth programs can ultimately get, and it's cool moments for the high school kids too, because they remember when they were in the other shoes there. So
yeah, it is great to have 6 of those experiences this year. There's kind of a huge community event, and the school and the administration, the band, the cheerleaders. I guess it's an all-encompassing thing. It's not just the players and coaches on the field. And what better way to kick it off than with Youth Night, to have the Van Reed and Lincoln Park and the West and Southern kids all there to welcome the team back and kick off another season. So offensive assistant coaches, thank you very much for joining me for this episode of the Bulldog Hour. Good luck this season, and we hope to talk to many of you after multiple victories on Fridays this fall.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you for your support. We appreciate all you do for the program.
All right, so halfway through, you got to listen to the offensive coaches. Very insightful, very appreciative of them taking the time to join me. They're in between practices last Wednesday heat acclimatization week, practice 1, sat down and talked with me, and then went right back out to the practice field for session 2. So, all right, we've got one group left. Again, it's going to be about 25 minutes, and this is with our defensive coaches. I did not get to sit down with a couple of them. They had day job activities they had to attend to. So Justin and I will try to catch up with Patrick Zerbe, the tight end coach, in the future, and Ryan Wolber, defensive line coach, not able to make it with me. And I'd already talked with defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber, so you won't be hearing from him again. He joined me last week in almost a co-host type role since Justin was unable to be here. So if you didn't hear that episode 2 here of our 11th season, be sure to go back in the archives and check that out. But now you'll get to hear from a few other Wilson defensive coaches just ahead of the start of the 2025 season.
All right, I am back now with some of our defensive coaches, 3 assistants here with me. I did get to talk with defensive coordinator Ernie Wolber on the last live episode of the Bulldog Hour. I've known Ernie for about 30 years. He and I go way back, not just football, ice hockey days. So we always have a lot to talk about, and it was nice to talk to him. But now I want to talk to the 3 of you, get the lowdown from your perspective on the defensive side of the ball and expectations for the 2025 Wilson football team. So here with me is Coach Dave Tabner, Coach Rick Periandi, and Coach Anthony Ciato. So we got defensive line, we got linebackers, we got DBs, we got all 3 levels here. So should be a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So how was your spring sessions, summer camp? I know you're in the middle of heat week right now, getting ready to throw on the pads and for 3 days to start. How has this gone with your 2025 team so far?
Well, from the off-season perspective, as far as weight training and things of that nature, obviously teaching at the high school with Jeremy, we both teach 0 period, along with Bob Barrett, who helps us out a lot, who coaches at our younger levels at Lincoln Park. And the kids worked hard. Coming off Harrisburg, that was tough, and we talked about how we're gonna see teams like that again. There's a lot of teams on the schedule, and that we could see in the playoffs that are back, have a lot of kids back. So we talked about weight room being one of those places that you can make up a lot of differences in your football ability. And the kids worked hard in the off season. We would lift 3 to 4 days a week, depending on the time frame. We started at like 4 days and then went down to 3. We were doing plyo, speed work, all incorporated on the days they didn't lift, and just kind of taking up right up into the spring season or the spring football practice or spring ball here at the end of the school year.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, we in our spring we had Wednesday workouts, and then we had Saturday workouts as well. So it was kind of a little bit of both O-line, D-line on Wednesday. There was a defensive focus on Saturdays, so a lot of guys came out and got those workouts in. I think off-season is a big word to use for this year's team, to me, especially when it comes to the line. A couple linemen have made some really good strides this off-season. A couple seniors that we have are really motivated, really excited, really have turned things around. So I'm optimistic about that. The one area that we're a little green. We're a little green with our interior linemen this year because last year we had Derek, we had Junior, right? We do have guys that are definitely going to be very capable, but they've got some proving to do, on the interior. Malachi Tolles is back. We got Mel, you got Clover, some good stout guys there. Jesse, maybe Avery's going to help us some interior this year, Avery Monero. But anyway, excited largely with what he said. I think the offseason is going to help us gain a lot of ground. That we need to be competitive this year.
You all were very, team-wise, successful last year. I think, but for a lot of outsiders, exceeded expectations, both individually, positionally, player-wise, but as a team going as far as you did, winning as many games, winning the section. The expectations outside of the area were lower than usual. Anything from 2024 that you want to carry over into 2025 or you want to improve on? You see something like, hey, we did that really good last year, but we want to be even better at it this year. Just anything you can take away from last successful season?
Yeah, I think the kids they flew around the ball last year. You know, we played a little bit more gap sound. They were physical, so hopefully we can kind of bring that physicality back. You know, we lost a couple guys, but you know we got some new faces. Hopefully, be able to step up. It's just the way it works with football.
You know, and from the defensive back perspective, we have almost everybody back, with exception to Maddox, and that's a huge loss for more than one side of the ball, obviously. Yeah. But he had a tremendous year. I mean, you know, he's a leader in the defensive backfield, and obviously made a lot of plays for us. But you know, outside of him, we have pretty much everybody coming back, and as Coach said earlier, we have some guys that made some strides. That can go in there and help us. I know like Elijah Dean. Elijah Dean has made a big stride playing some safety for us. We've been moving Jackson around, Jackson Becker, the different spots both at corner and at safety to kind of help us in a little bit of depth from that side. But we have 3 of our 4 starters back in the defensive backfield. And Carp started a lot of games for us last year when Maddox was a little banged up or when he needed a blow. So they all have starting experience. So excited for that group. I think we have plenty of speed, plenty of athleticism, but leadership is going to be a big thing. And who's going to step up to be a leader? You know, you had Maddox and you had Christo last year, you know, being leaders on the defensive side of the ball. And we're looking for that, and I think there's some guys that have been making some strides to do that. But you know, a guy that's going to step up and be a leader, and not necessarily a leader by putting others in a bad spot or putting them down, more, you know, trying to pump everybody up or bring everybody up to their level. You know, because we got a lot of quiet kids that work hard, but we need some kids to be a little more vocal, and I think they're starting to come into their own and be a little more confident to do that.
Yeah, all great points there. I guess the one thing I was going to add is, that leadership component was very strong last year. Very strong, very notable. Multiple guys that just took it upon themselves to they weren't afraid to hold their teammates accountable, you know, to get on them and encourage everybody to work. So, we're seeing several guys make strides. Like Jay-Z's become a real vocal guy on our team. He plays interior line, so he's really worked hard trying to have a good year this year. You know, we have some other guys, you know, again, hoping to fill up those ranks. Chase Frable's busted his tail for a good while for us. So, you know, I'm talking specifically about, you know, the interior kind of D-line guys. You know, we're really looking forward to those guys filling those roles this year.
Is there an aspect from your defense here in 2025 or your positional group that you're most looking forward to see? You know, how does this fit? How did this scheme work? Are there any changes to the defense that you're incorporating or removing? You know, the football is always evolving. Is any of that going to impact the Wilson defense this season?
So as Coach Taverner talked about, we were meeting with the linebackers on Sundays throughout the whole, really kind of right after the new year, and when we got into like February, March, April, right up to the end of the school year, we would meet on Sundays and do some install from a secondary perspective, trying to put in some different coverages, some different looks, disguise some things like that without giving too much away. Just showing them some things that we were building on last year, but kind of reviewing, but then also adding to that. And from my positional group, the speed that we have back there, coaching track here as well. There's a lot of track guys in that group. In fact, you know, you look at you know, all the way back, Elijah Dean, Jaden Carpenter, Chase Herb, Carell Akins, and I'm missing one more. Monty Greer and Damian Greer and Monty Greer all ran track. And then you know, Jackson Becker and Zerkovich, Aiden was a track guy, and Jackson Becker was lacrosse. So we have a ton of speed back there, and they were all sprinters. They did the sprint workouts and things of that nature. So I'm really excited about our speed. I think we have the ability to be able to fly around back there and be able to cover. Obviously, in this section and our district, there's some phenomenal receivers that we're going to be up against. And, you know, as you talk later about our schedule, we're going to have a quarterback to deal with week 3 on top of the other quarterbacks that we have.
That's going to come up.
Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges that I think we have the speed and the experience to be able to handle, which I'm excited about.
So some of the names have already come to the forefront and just talking about some of the other topics. But let's talk individually now with your returning starters and then maybe a few guys that are going to fill in for the graduating seniors. So Anthony, let's start with you and the linebackers. We know you lost some, but I think you got a few pieces coming back as well.
Yeah, we lost Christo and we lost Brady. You know, big key pieces last year. as far as even that leadership goes. But we have EJ back another year, and we have Ethan Harden back. So then we have 2 spots then that kind of, kids fighting for positions. I know Ernie was talking about Braden Farrell. Then you got, even outside, you have Cole Peterson, you have Aiden Harmon, you have Aiden Kramer. It's like you got a lot of guys in the mix. Inside, we got a little bit of a battle with Joel Garcia and Matt Wyatt. And then we even have Miles Hatch, in the mix with a young guy, Travis Bassoon. So, hopefully I didn't miss anybody. But Tyler Ulrich, you have, I'm trying to think of some other names off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, it's really, who's going to show up and who's, we get the pads clapping, who's going to make some tackles.
Do you have any leaders for any of those open spots, or has it really been like a rotationary thing?
I mean, I think we have Braden Farrell as far as outside goes. I think he's, kind of established himself being up top there, but, anything can happen. And kids just got to keep working hard, see what goes on from there.
How quickly did you see that Bassoon could hold his own as a freshman and could be in contention for a rotational or starting spot at the linebacker? Ninth graders, that's hard to do.
Yeah, ninth grade. I mean, he's raw. He's an athletic kid. He's a big kid. He's just, I know we had him at D-line first, and now we, his footwork's good, just kind of moving him around, and I know it's going to take some time, mentally, as far as getting down our scheme and in the techniques that we do.
Rick, how about the DBs? I know you said there's a lot back. You mentioned a lot of the names, but I am sure there's a few other guys that are going to rotate this year as well.
Yeah, obviously, if I had to make a starting group today, Carell would be a corner, Carp would be our other corner, and then Monty Greer and Chase Herb obviously would be our safeties.
Basically the 4 from last year with Maddox.
With all exactly right, and all starting experience as we talked about earlier. But as you just mentioned, all of those guys also play key aspects on the offensive side, and even Chase has been getting some reps on offense as well. So guys like Carell, Monty, and Carp are going to need blows. I mean, Carp running a lot of downfield routes, and Monty and Rel running the ball. They're going to need blows, and I think we got a lot of depth behind him at corner. You have Aiden Zerkovich. You got we had talked about. We've been mixing with Jackson Beckard there. We have Damian Greer. Will go on only into his sophomore year, but he actually got on the field a little bit as well last year for us. Got a lot of good JV time. Knows the system. Has made some good improvements for us too, both in speed and strength. And then back at the safety position, we still can rotate Jackson back there. Elijah Dean, which I'm excited about. And then we have some freshmen that I'm not sure how much varsity time they're going to get, but down the road, Sammy Diana, a freshman going into his sophomore year. He'll be something that I think will be down the road for us, could be a solid contributor. Matt Narr, again, also going into his sophomore year. I think the two of them are showing some real good progress in the different things because they're learning, a lot of the new stuff that they hadn't necessarily run on the ninth grade team. So they're learning some new stuff, and I feel like they've gotten a decent handle on that. Again, not to throw them to the wolves and say they're going to be a Friday night player at this point in their career, but I think down the road that could be a nice piece for us to fill in because next year is going to be, we're going to lose a lot. Right. You're going to lose Rel, you're going to lose Carp, you're going to lose Chase, and then and Eli. And Zerk. I mean, so you start going through the list.
Damien,
exactly, will be back. So getting those guys experience and even varsity reps in practice is going to be big. For sure.
Yeah, well, we moved Rory Carter from safety up to the outside backer. So, strong, athletic kid, can run. Yep. So, again, trying to get those mental reps, helps you out.
Yeah, that's a great point that these gentlemen are bringing up here. That for D-line, we graduated Cam Zollinger, right there, Reiniger, Junior Cattol, all contributed greatly last year to our defensive front, and all those guys had multiple years of varsity time, varsity reps. So that's a big gap to fill, with those guys that aren't with us right now from a leadership perspective, right? The work ethic, all those things. And the nice thing is that we do have some real good prospects this year. Obviously Mel is probably our most senior defensive lineman at this point because he's been playing He's been getting varsity reps, I believe, since his 10th grade year. Then you have Mike. Mike's the same boat. He's as a junior. He's definitely taken on some leadership. Mike Glover for us out at end.
More responsibility.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And I saw. We saw it this year. We noticed how he's become more vocal with his teammates, and you love that. Just because he busts his tail, and to be vocal on top of that, that's going to be a huge bonus for our team.
Overall, I believe our front seven's pretty young.
Yeah.
As far as they might be seniors, but as far as playing time goes, they're still pretty young.
Yep. So you got Malachi Tolles, who did play some for us last year. He busted his tail in the weight room. He's packed on a lot of muscle this year. He looks great. He's got a great motor. He's going to be a problem. I mean, I believe he will be just because he hustles so much. You have Jesse Etchberger, Avery Manera. These guys, they play kind of offense, but they help us out on the D-line. We can plug and play them. Jay-Z Hector, playing interior for us. He's had a real good offseason. He's really worked hard. Chase Frable, Preston Simons. We've got some good hardworking guys. And so if they get their technique down, they get their play down, we should have a solid year. So looking forward to them to step up.
Well, we'll start your solid year with Game 1 against Cheltenham. 6 home games this year, including that one, which is great. A little bit different than last year, where not only were on the road 6 times during the regular season, you also have to go to Coatesville for the scrimmage. Flip-flop. You guys, a lot of home cooking this season. So how does it feel to be home at Gursky more often than not?
I mean, it's a great environment. I mean, Friday nights here at Gursky, you get the fans coming and come out and get some food, and kids get excited. They live for it. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this last year, coming from a different school and seeing a completely different perspective. Last year was my first year here at Wilson. I mean, a Friday night home game is pretty incredible. I mean, the whole day, just the buzz around the school and everything of that nature. So to have 6 games at home is going to be super exciting. Speaking for Cheltenham, that's always a tricky game. Yeah. That first game, even into week 2 or 3, because you don't have much on them. You're looking at a scrimmage and maybe some stuff from the prior year, but from their side, they're in the same position. But that's always a tricky game because you don't know what wrinkles they're going to show. It's more in-game adjustments. I know last year they. We sort of had opportunities early, and then we sort of had that game in hand, and then we got a little lethargic, and they battled back. They played hard for 4 quarters. And it came down to the end where we had to get the ball back and get a couple first downs to win it. So hopefully this year, like I said, we have that mentality against all of the teams that we play 4 quarters all the way through. And you know how it is that first game too is kids are out of shape, and we work hard, but playing a 48-minute football game is different from all the conditioning you can do on the field. Do they actually get in the game and the emotion and the adrenaline and everything? So
nothing gets in game shape.
Yeah, that's always
right. You got to play the games to be in game shape. At least you don't have to worry about weather permitting. Knock on wood.
Going to Saturday.
Playing Saturday in the heat. Yes, that was a little wrench thrown into the gears last year. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Wilson will be making the call this time, so it'll be a little bit different. Probably we'll try to get it in on Friday night. I have Phillies tickets the next day, so
you don't want to move it to Saturday.
Yeah, that'd be good. But you mentioned Cheltenham. That's actually become the MO against that team is get out to a big lead quickly and then almost kind of hold on.
Right.
So different teams. I heard Coach Peterson said that they have a new coaching staff at Cheltenham. So
we heard that as well.
A little bit different. Maybe expectations from them. It is nice being in the second part of the 2-year cycle, so you have played all these teams, so there's a tiny bit of familiarity, but man, when you bring a new coaching staff, that can really completely alter everything that's going to be thrown at you.
Yeah.
So,
and they would agree that is across the board in a couple of teams that we play. I had heard there's obviously some coaching changes at schools like Mifflin. Coach Mealy now is at McCaskey.
Penn Manor.
Penn Manor has a new staff, so that changes a lot of the perspectives of what are they going to run, what's their system's going to be, things like that.
So you mentioned Mifflin, we mentioned McCaskey, Penn Manor. Outside of Game 1, Week 1, being ready for Cheltenham, is there any other games that stand out for any reason? Just whether it's the rivalry, whether it's the way the game went down last year, just any other post Week 1 opponents that really stand out to you or that you're interested to see?
I mean, I would just say from last year's perspective, Cedar Crest was an interesting game, tight game.
Got them twice too.
And we played them at home, right? Played them at home, and they battled like heck against us at home last year.
So stand at halftime.
The last 2 years, and this is my 3rd year. So one thing I've noticed with those guys the last 2 years is we've had very tough regular season games with those guys the last 2 years, all one-score games, I believe. So but at the end of the day, just hope that we play good, sound, fundamental football and compete.
You've been with it with Cedar Crest. Justin and I mentioned last year we thought that outside of Wilson and Township, we thought Cedar Crest was the next best team in the league. They proved that they've battled you real well last year in the regular season. You guys got them pretty good in the playoffs. That one was much more in control throughout. But you mentioned 2 years ago now, I think Edison Case had just returned and had to have a pick at the end of the game to kind of seal it. You were kind of up, I don't want to say comfortably, but you were winning, and then they kept battling. And then Cedar Crest, they lost their quarterback. Custer's gone, but that junior class for them is very strong. And now they're in the second year under a new head coach, with Coach Lambros there. So, Crest is an interesting one, and you got to go there. So heading to Lebanon to battle Cedar Crest, and obviously we know Mifflin, rivalry game. That one everyone's always amped up for. The kids were those are the three big ones. Cheltenham, Nazareth, and Mifflin were the three that when I talked to the players last week, that's what stood out to them. Are you guys in the same boat?
Yeah, I mean, I
First
think.
three.
Right? Well, and there's so many different. You go from Cheltenham being kind of a, they can spread the ball out, they can do different things. And then you go to Plymouth White Marsh, and they're little pound and ground and pound. And then you can go back to Nazareth, and obviously we saw last year from the defensive back perspective, we gave up 4 touchdown passes in the first half. A very good quarterback, obviously for Division I level, and we made some good adjustments and be able to balance out the game a little bit in the second half. But as you know, and we know in sports is you win a section title, you're going to have a target on your back, and every time we play, everybody gets up for that game. Everybody wants to beat Wilson, and we've to a degree earned that right, but at the same point, everybody's going to bring their best effort, and we've got to be ready for it. I mean, obviously Township again this year. Last game of the regular season, we got them at home this year. They're always tough. A big, a game that's always come down to the last number of years, that section title game. Hopefully, we're in that same position again. But I think as you look through the schedule, and especially with the coaches changes too, we handled Penn Manor last year, we handled McCaskey, but who knows this year? Who knows the players? Changes, the new coaching staff, different mentality. It could change all that. So just getting up for every game. But
start week 1.
Those first three games are always fun because they're not teams you're accustomed to, and it's a change of different things.
So last thing schedule wise, I know we're playing on the road versus McCaskey, but the game was shifted away from their stadium and sports complex renovations. I believe they're being converted to turf, playing at Lancaster Catholic, which is turf. I was just there last year with the middle school program. Is there an inherent advantage, disadvantage of turf versus grass? Do you see a big change? I'm mostly talking to you, Rick, because I know you hear skill position, DBs, wide receivers, running backs, the agility, the shiftiness.
Sure.
Not to sell, I'm a lineman, linebacker at heart. So, but I feel like I always hear people talk about that from a skill position advantage. Do you have any insight onto that? Do you prefer one over the other? I
mean, I personally always prefer for our guys to play on turf, and the reason for it is you get a true surface for both teams. I find that in the years that I've coached, when you play on a natural surface, especially a team later in the season, you're going through some Friday night rain games, and other, soccer might play a game in the stadium, and field hockey might play a game in the stadium, depending on their facilities. And you get to a game. I recall coaching at Conestoga Valley. We played Garden Spot, but it's before Garden Spot had turf. They had grass, and it was like a kind of like a middle of the season game, early fall. But they had homecoming that week, so they played their big games on that stadium field. So they played a soccer game, a field hockey game, and they got rain. And we went in there on Friday night, and I mean, it was it was like a skating rink. So anytime you can get on a true surface, I think for both teams, it gives you the best advantage. And obviously, we work a lot of footwork stuff and staying in our frames so we can react when we do that. But when you can get on a true surface, both for safety of the players, but also for the speed of the game, to be able to use our speed on a true surface, I would take that over grass any day. That's just my opinion.
Do you see any difference in the trenches, Dave? Do you think?
Absolutely. And actually, I'm going back a couple of years, but I believe it was McCaskey 2 years ago. It was a pretty wet game.
It was very wet.
Oh yeah, and I mean, just yes, I'm a fan of being able to have traction. If it's muddy out there, you're more liable to miss a tackle, give up a big play. So yeah, if we can have traction on the field, that's a good thing. I'm a turf guy.
Excellent. Well, I think Plymouth Marsh is turf, so I think every game should be on turf this year. So that's good to know that that's the preference and that's the way it's gone. That's where most people have gone. There's very few grass fields left. Why Missing here is always in the news about what they're going to do with playoff games and things like that.
We're missing maybe Lebanon still.
Lebanon is under renovation.
Oh, they're under renovation as well.
That includes changing to turf or not, but Lebanon's got 10 road games, 8 away games, 2 neutral field games this year.
I think Solanco, from our LL
from where
perspective,
you were at,
I think Solanco was grass, but you're right, McCaskey, and now that's changing.
One of the only holdouts in Section 1 or the biggest schools in LL that didn't have turf, and it looks like next time you take a journey down to Lancaster to play JP McCaskey, it will be on a turf surface field.
Right.
So, all right, last thing I wanted to ask you guys just is what's your message to the fans and the community as we embark on a new season? What should there be expectations for in 2025? Why do you want them here to support the team?
My message is go Dogs. And my something that I noticed, I went to Springford. I've coached with a couple of the programs, but the community at Wilson is already strong. I mean, it is a when you talk about Wilson football, you're talking about this person's children or grandchildren are playing football at the same school that they played at. The community is so strong here. So I'm thankful to be part of that community. Go Bulldogs.
Yeah, I would say obviously come out to the games. So you mentioned it, Joey. We've got 6 home games. Filling up the stadium. Hopefully have some more than 6 home games, so we have a couple playoff games here as well.
Yes.
Creating that home field advantage for ourselves. When the team enters the field after pregame and they see a packed home side of the bleachers and cheering us on and being loud. And obviously, as football. There's points of the game where there's adversity is going to strike and stick with us. And Doug and Ernie always say we want to get at least one win and then we move from there. But I think we have after a district championship appearance last year, we have high expectations. We've been trying to instill that to the kids. We expect to go out and be competitive every Friday night, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, come out, have fun, get some food, support the kids. Let's get that student section bopping around, and let's just get after it.
All right, yeah. Well, thank you so much, defensive assistants, for joining me here to wrap up the assistant coach interviews for the Bulldog Hour. I always appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with Justin and me. So, and also we hope to talk to each and every one of you after many, many wins on Friday nights this fall. So thank you so much for joining me.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that wraps up the interviews with Wilson football assistant coaches. Thanks to the 8 gentlemen that sat down with me last week. Also, thanks to Coach Ernie Wolver for joining me a couple weeks ago here on the show. And up next, on the next show, we're done here for this evening, but up on the next show will be Wilson football head coach Doug Doms, and that will be in 2 days on Thursday, August 14th at about 8 p.m. I will go live once again and play the recorded interview that I did with Coach Doms last week. So just a reminder that the scrimmage is this Saturday at home against Coatesville. So John Gursky Stadium, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. is the start time. Last I checked, they did not know if junior varsity or varsity would be first. If I find out ahead of time, I will let everyone know. But as of right now, just plan on being at Gursky at 10 a.m. if you'd like to take a first look at the 2025 Wilson football team as they finish their first week of 3-day practices and embark on their exhibition game against Coatesville. But I think that is it. And that wraps up episode 4 of the Bulldog Hour's 11th season. Appreciate everything from the coaches able to sit down and talk with me. Previously, we broadcast the player interviews. If you didn't see that, go seek out episode 3 of season 11. Stay tuned for 2 days from now, episode 5 of season 11 with Coach Doug Doms. And then on Sunday the 17th, scrimmage recap, full game-by-game season preview. Justin will be here, and we will be joined by Paul Roberts from SV Sports and Burke's sportsreport.com. All right. That'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Bulldog Hour. We'll be back in 2 days for episode 5 with Coach Doug Doms. Until next time, for Justin Raffoff and the entire Wilson football program, I'm Joe Mays. And remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.